Hello everybody, my name is Kishore Rajesh and this is Video Bytes. Today I have with us Mr. Weise, who teaches 6th, 7th, and upper school drama at Bytes Scottsdale. This is his second year of teaching. Thank you so much for being with us, Mr. Weise.
Sure, no problem.
And I'm going to ask you a few questions about how your teaching has changed, like with this coronavirus crisis.
Yeah, sure.
You mentioned before that you can't really perform plays because you can't meet. How has your teaching methodology changed? Do you guys still do improv games, or do you guys just do like audio clips?
Well, it's interesting. Like my I guess my methodology and my structure hasn't changed a whole lot, because every time kids come to class, they kind of get out their notebooks and they write a reflection on the previous class, and then we do a check-in, which is just, sometimes it's you just say your name and how you're feeling. Other times it's you say your name and if you could create a random breakfast dish, what would it be called and why? Just something random, or just something to just get a little bit, kind of test the water, see how everybody's feeling, get an idea of just the kind of mood people are in and what's going on. Then we do a warm-up game, and then we have our lesson, and then we have a takeaway where the students write down either this kind of like an oh no moment, a aha moment, a huh moment, like just things, something you have a question about, something that caught you off guard, something you're excited about, these sorts of things for the class. And like that's the structure of my class. And what I do now is I transfer that structure to like Microsoft Forms, and I send those out every week. And so that structure still sort of stays in place and a lot in that way. However, each class is designed primarily to be a live performance class, and you can't do live performance when you're in a digital space. So we essentially transferred it to digital storytelling classes. So what does digital storytelling look like, and how do we do that? And as like celebrities have been doing things online now and doing performances, I've been like dropping links into Teams and being like, this is an example of digital storytelling, and this is what people are doing now, and this is how we're using the restrictions that we have, the literal box we're in, right? These restrictions to create art and to do things. And how do we do that? How do we take those restrictions and turn them into opportunities? And so we've been having a lot of discussion about that. I always hold the space for the students to kind of process what's going on. But ultimately, all of the classes were in a stage of rehearsing for our final performances and shows. So really it was like, well, how do we take those that rehearsal and the work they've already done, and how do we find a way to bring it to completion? And that was really the thing that I was looking forward to figuring out and trying to do. And as I mentioned earlier, the midsummer thing where the students are essentially still acting and performing their parts, they're sending them into Teams, and then I am editing them together and then sending them back to them for feedback. I just finished part of the first act yesterday, adding sound effects in there and things to create a three-dimensional environment. And some of the other students that are working on sound, one of them's developing music. I talk to him, he gives me some of his music, I drop it in there, then I send it back to him, he gives me some feedback, and then we kind of go from there. Yeah. It's really important to me that it be a full collaborative thing. This isn't about me creating art. This is about me creating a space for the students to create art, and me to hold that space for them and do what I can to collaborate with them. But ultimately, I want them to be the ones that feel proud of the work they do.
Definitely sounds like you kept like the spirit of the classroom, like even with this remote learning.
Yeah, we tried.
Yeah. Now that you're teaching at home, basically, how are you balancing like teaching with being with family?
Oh, it's incredibly difficult. It's a big challenge. It's mostly, fortunately, I live with someone and have a cat, so that's always helpful. So, yeah. But otherwise, it's just a matter of I set up a structure for myself every week. I know how that structure goes. I make sure I have one live session a week that students can jump into, and we can talk about what's going on, make sure they understand all of the, all the parameters of the assignments. I do an intro video each week for each class, so they know what's going on. And then otherwise, it's just a matter of carving out time for myself, being like, okay, what am I doing to relax today? Am I reading? How do I connect with my family? Like every weekend I have a video conference call with, I have family in New York and in Chicago and in California. So we do just a Zoom call with all of us, and I get to see my nephew and things like that. So that's something that we try to do just to keep everybody sane So when we're all just inside, and I'm very grateful to be working and doing the work that I'm doing right now. Actually, I'm very, very grateful for that. And it's always tricky to figure out, how to balance that work and the time to make sure I'm taking care of myself, so that I'm staying healthy mentally and physically.
Yeah, that's definitely important. And last question, is there anything your students or their parents could do to help ease into this change in environment?
I think the best, I don't know about the best thing, right? It's different for everybody. Everybody has different things, and because everyone has different circumstances. So I think one of a useful thing to do is really take stock of, what resources each family has, and be like, well, how can we make sure that we are listening to each other? What is it like to make sure we're listening to one another, and really finding time to have time for ourselves and take care of ourselves, right? And then also, how do we find ways to help take care of each other and support each other? And that's the thing that I find tricky to do, but I think it's one of the best things you can do. And especially moving to this, digital environment. Now we're all together in one space, and it's just being able to go to work is a nice break from people sometimes. Now, some people don't have that, and so how do we do that? And I think it's just a matter of being honest and having discussions and talking, and it's like, all right, well, I'm going to go for a walk. You put on your mask and you just head out there and you do that for a little while, and then you come back. I know because one of the check-ins that I was asking my students was, what do you do for physical activity to keep yourself physically active? Some kids are like, I swim. Some kids said they did digital basketball practice with their coach and their team. And I think it's really just a matter of figuring all that out and making lists, right? Giving yourself an agenda and a list, and ideally something that's different every day, so you know what day of the week it is. Because it's easy to kind of lose track of time. So it's like, well, what is something that only happens on Wednesdays? What is something that only happens on Thursdays? What is something that only happens on Friday?
Yeah.
It really kind of helps create a level of stability and normalcy and structure.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Weise, for agreeing to be part of this interview. And I hope you have a great rest of the school year and great summer.
Thank you very much. You as well. My pleasure. Take care.
You too.